Hi everyone, and welcome to the Edinburgh International Film Festival webinar on how to become a film critic. My name is Whelan, and I am the Assistant Programme Coordinator for this year's Young Critics Programme. And I am joined by film journalist Rafa Ross, who has written for Little White Lies and The Skinny, among many others, and also Jamie Dunn, who is the film editor of Scotland's largest arts and culture magazine, The Skinny. Today, they will be sharing some of their top tips to critics looking to break through and make a living in the notoriously difficult film industry, as well as answering some of the questions that some of you budding film critics sitting at home might have. Rafa, please could you share some of your top 5 tips for freelance journalists?
Hi everyone. My number 1 tip would be read. It might seem obvious, but as a writer, it is important to read constantly. And as a film critic, it is crucial to read other film writers and to familiarize yourself with the style of the outlets that you want to write for. Tip number 2 would be to find your strengths. Is there anything in particular that you can write about with more propriety than others? Understand how your voice stands out from others. This will help you to sell yourself as a writer and increase your chances of placing pitches. Number 3 would be to start small. Start your journey as a writer with writing for smaller outlets, where editors will usually dedicate more time to your writing. These are usually unpaid, but will give you invaluable experience and help you build your portfolio as you learn what works and what doesn't for you. It will also teach you how to better format your writing, how to work closely with editors, and how to promote your work. It will also often provide you with the chance of attending film festivals as press and reviewing screener links. Number 4 would be to create your own database. Networking is a vital part of being a journalist. Save every single contact you can find, from editors to PR representatives to fellow critics. This will make life much easier as your career evolves. Subscribe to newsletters such as Freelance Writing Jobs and the Peak District to get opportunities straight to your inbox. Get a Twitter account if you don't have one, and start following commissioning editors and fellow writers. Number 5 is to embrace rejection. As you begin pitching, you soon realize rejections are far more common than fulfilled commissions. Don't take it personally and don't be discouraged. All the writers you admire have also dealt with plenty of rejection before getting to where they are now. Appreciate the feedback when you get it, because many rejections emails are automated, and learn from it so you can build a stronger pitch next time around. A bonus tip would be to understand your value. Starting your career as a film writer involves a lot of grueling, frustrating work, often for free. However, once you grow your portfolio and start writing for bigger outlets, it is important to know how to value your work. Always agree on rates before submitting a piece, and learn how to invoice properly and be financially organized. More organized than my running cats.
Thank you so much. Jamie, please could you share your top 5 tips for approaching editors?
Sure. My first tip is pitch the right articles to the right editors. It's no good approaching Art Forum to review Suicide Squad or asking Sci-Fi Now to write a feature on romantic comedies. You've got to know and ideally read the publications you're pitching to. So know the types of articles they've commissioned in the past and tailor your pitches to their readers. My second tip is always include examples of your work with the pitch. You can have the best pitch in the world, but an editor needs to know you can write. So always include examples of your best work. Links to portfolios are very useful, but I think it's better to highlight 2 or 3 of your strongest, most relevant articles. And if you've never been published before, don't worry. Just send a few unpublished examples of your writing in the email. My third tip is never write on spec. Writing for a publication is a collaboration between you and the editor. Editors in general want to hear the outline of your pitch first so they can make suggestions on how it could be shaped to fit their publication. They don't want to see full articles you've gone off and written ahead of time. Those pitches will be rejected for the most part. My fourth tip is don't be precious about your work. Embrace being edited and be open to suggestions on how your story could be improved. Because editors don't want to work with writers who will fight them over every suggestion or every edit. So be prepared to kill your darlings. And my final tip is make life as easy for the editor as possible. So always meet your deadlines, hand in clean copy, and write to word count. You can be the greatest writer in the world, but if you're always late filing your copy or your copy is filled with errors, the editor will most likely move on to writers who cause them fewer headaches.
Thank you. We're just going to have a swap of interpreters. Thank you both so much for sharing those amazing tips. Now we've got a few questions for you. This question's for Rafa. How do you write your reviews? Do you actively take notes at the cinema throughout the whole film, or do you focus on certain scenes?
Well, I seem to be part of a minority in saying I take very, very thorough notes of everything I watch, be it in the cinema or at home. I enjoy taking notes about pieces of dialogue that stand out to me and fleeting feelings I may have while watching a film. If I'm in the cinema, I'll just use a plain notebook and scribble keywords in the dark, making sense of it after the screening. If I'm at home, I'm much tidier and comprehensive. Many of my colleagues have said they find it too distracting, but I find it extremely helpful when it comes to retaining information. Also, because I attend film festivals, it is handy to have a written archive of what I've seen, just in case a film I've liked during a festival gets a release later on and I need a refresher. I've lost count of how many times I referred back to old notebooks months after having seen a film, and just by reading the notes, almost felt like a rewatch. The bottom line is there's no right or wrong way to go about taking notes. It truly depends on the writer's personal style. In my case, the more the merrier.
Thank you. Another question that people wanted to know the answer to is, how do you get paid for writing film reviews?
That's a good one. I've started my writing career with my own very micro blog back home in Brazil. I would watch as many films as possible and write as often as I could. I read many other film writers and tried to find my own style as I navigated different formats. It was wonderful having the time to explore what I enjoyed and to do it solely for myself. After growing my portfolio, I wrote for smaller publications until making my way into the bigger ones, which could afford to pay freelancers. Once moving to the UK, I had to undergo the same process to build a portfolio in English. I recommend new writers to pitch smaller outlets, even if unpaid, not only to expand their portfolio, but also to get a sense of how to work with editors and what is expected of a writer. Once your portfolio is a bit bulkier and you feel safe and confident to do so, spend some time researching contacts of editors and publications that can afford to pay freelancers, and then get pitching. There are many wonderful resources online on which publications pay and how much, so you're not blindsided by their rates. I also say keep in mind that payment very rarely takes place quickly, and you need to be prepared to wait a few weeks between an accepted pitch and a fulfilled payment.
Thank you, Rafa. And don't worry, Jamie, we've got some questions for you as well. In your opinion, what makes a good review and what makes a bad review?
Well, I guess first I would say there is no formula to writing a good review. Like any writer, a critic finds their voice and style over time, and every critic approaches each new review in a different way, and their style will probably change from review to review depending on where they're being published. But in saying that, the reviews I like are the ones that balance subjectivity with objectivity. I like critics who are quite forceful with their opinions and are brutally honest, but they also need to back up this with rigorous argument. So, as well as having opinions on the film's quality and shortcomings, good critics are also able to bring all their film knowledge and experience into the review. So you need to be good at pinpointing what makes a film work and what doesn't. good reviews are always full of specific examples and sharp observations that back up the subjective point of view. Good critics can also put a film in the context of film history by pulling on all they have read and seen. And I'd say the best critics actually pull on much more than just the knowledge of the film world. Great critics are passionate about film and know it inside out, but they can also make references to visual art, to music, theatre, politics, and other areas of culture, making the review much richer than the ones that only engage with film in terms of other films. And it should go without saying as well, but a good review should be a pleasure to read. So crisp prose and sparkling wit is very much appreciated.
Thank you. And I've got one more question for you. Do you prefer to stick with existing writers who you've worked with, or look for new ones as time goes on?
Well, I love building relationships with writers to the extent where I know their particular interests and passions and knowledge. And a big part of the fun of being an editor is finding the perfect writer for the perfect piece. So if a writer's a good critic, reliable, easy to work with, files a copy in a timely fashion, I'm probably going to continue trying to keep working with them, basically. And many writers who write for the Skinny have done so for years. But in saying all that, every publication needs a turnover of writers to keep itself fresh. The Skinny is a great place to start as a critic, I think. And for many of my writers, it's the first place at which they were paid to write criticism. But if you've got ambitions to be a freelancer full-time, you've got to build up your portfolio and start writing for bigger publications. So as writers move on to those other opportunities, new people have to come through to fill their place. And I'm always really excited to work with new critics who can bring original ideas and innovative ideas to the magazine.
Thank you. That brings us to an end of our How to Become a Film Critic webinar. I'd like to say thank you to our participants, Rafa and Jamie, for joining us, and also our BSL interpreters, Max and Lynn.
Thank you.
Please feel free to leave questions in the comment section. And until next time, take care.